5:30. I'll call our city council meeting to order. First of all, Councilwoman Maddie is going to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
We have with us tonight two of the local pastors, but Jared Brown from Grace Fellowship will lead us in a prayer.
Would you bow with me, please? Father, we love you, and we are so honored, so grateful to you for the leadership that you have brought to this city, that over the many years you have placed men and women in just wisdom, and you have provided wisdom, and you have led them in directions that we couldn't even see nor fathom were coming. And Lord, you have prepared the city. And Father, we know that you are going to do the same again. And whether they know you or call upon your name, we know that you will bring wisdom tonight. We ask that you would bring wisdom tonight. We ask that you would illuminate their minds and their hearts. We ask that they would be full of just love and hope and confidence in the future. And we pray that you would guide us, continue to guide us every step of the way, because we know not where we're going. We don't know how to prepare for a city that is booming and thriving and growing, but you know exactly what you're doing. So illuminate their hearts tonight, illuminate their minds, allow them to rule on matters with authority and with compassion. We love you, we praise you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I want to say thank you to y'all. We are a booming, thriving community, growing economically, every other way as well, and I give a lot of credit to the leadership y'all give to our community. Appreciate y'all. And y'all, Mr. Alliance. Thank you very much. We have two presentations. There are proclamations and presentations tonight, so let me come up front and I'll read them. Now, just for everybody's information, when a person wants, a lot of these resolutions we sign, that we prepare are brought to us by the citizens. So if you have something you want done, don't forget to call us. Call Sarah and she can contact me and we'll try to get you on the agenda and do that. Tonight, we have, first of all, Momin Quasi, who you can go ahead and get up here if you don't mind. And he's going to say something a minute after I read the proclamation. But his is about a gentleman named Milton Brown, recognizing Milton Brown Day. I want to read the proclamation. I'm going to let Momin give a little bit of information. Whereas Milton Brown was born in Stephenville to cotton sharecroppers in 1903. Whereas Milton Brown displayed a great musical promise as a vocalist from a young age and formed the Wills Fiddle Band with his friends and family. Whereas the Wills Fiddle Band gained notoriety at dance halls in and around Fort Worth, the birthplace of Western swing. And in 1932, Milton Brown formed his own band, the Milton Brown and his Musical Brownies, a prototypical Western swing band that consisted of fiddles, guitars, banjo, bass, piano, became a mainstay in North Central Texas. And whereas the ensemble offered a ray of joy during a bleak chapter in U.S. history, and its style influenced legendary artists such as Spade Cooley, Tex Williams, Bob Wills, and where after his tragic death in 1936, Milton was inducted into the Texas Music Hall of Fame and the Western Swing Society Hall of Fame, which cemented his status as a Texas music icon. I'll just insert here. Stephenville has been declared by the governor as a music-friendly city. Whereas Milton Brown is buried in the Smith Springs Cemetery in Erath County, and whereas Western swing music stands as a shining example of Texas's contributions to American culture at large, and this legacy was built in no small part by Milton Brown, the father of swing. And now, therefore, I, Doug Swing, Mayor of Stephenville, Texas, do hereby proclaim September 8th, 2023, as Milton Brown Day in the city of Stephenville, and urge all of its residents and employees to join in celebrating his storied career and his legacy left in Texas music history. I hope you are inspired to emulate the qualities that propel him to great success. I'm going to let Momin give a little presentation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your leadership so much, Mayor, and thank you all. Thanks again also to Mr. King and Daryl Brown for their leadership behind the scenes. And I just wanted to give a little background to why I brought this idea to the city and why I'm so thrilled that you've made this proclamation today. As the representative of the Langdon Review of the Arts in Texas, a journal that I've been editing for the last several years, and this year is our 20th and final volume of the journal. We're ending our run. This is our swan song. I went to the HICO Billy the Kid Film Festival this last year and watched a documentary film that had been introduced called The Birth and History of Western Swing, produced by Mike Markwart, who's out of Fort Worth. And in that film, there was a scene an entire few minutes dedicated to Milton Brown. And I had officiated a funeral at Smith Springs Cemetery, and I recognized the cemetery in the film, and there was Milton Brown. And I thought, wait. Bob Wills has a big day in Turkey, Texas. Milton Brown was born in Stephenville and is buried in that cemetery, Smith Springs Cemetery. Why don't I know about that? I'm a musician, and I've been here at Tarleton for a long time here in Stephenville. It's like, this was a revelation to me. So I thought, we've got to bring this film to Tarleton and to Stephenville. So we screened the film at Tarleton State in the spring and had a great turnout. And Mike Markwart came, and several people from the film were represented. And so then I thought, well, we must have some recognition in Stephenville for Milton Brown's contribution to music, who then influenced swing music and big band music and rock and roll's early time and now rock and roll. So this Milton Brown, he made a mark. And I do a weekly radio show on KTRL called The Beatles and Beyond. So I'm very aware of the Beatles and beyond, but it was the pre-Beatles, and you keep going back, goes back to Milton Brown. So I just was thrilled about this, and so I thought, let's request that the city do a proclamation. We reached out to the governor. Governor Abbott sent us a really nice letter recognizing Milton Brown and encouraging us in our in my request to ask the city to make this proclamation. So in the book that I gave to the city council and the city attorney today and other representatives, including Judge Huckabee, I just wanted to draw your attention to page 247 and following. It has a little bit of an article there by Mike Markwart about the process of him making that film. It's still in its post-production phases, but I'm not advertising the film. I'm just wanting you to know that's what inspired me to come to the city and ask for this proclamation. So on behalf of the Langdon Review of the Arts in Texas and myself, I just thank you very much. And I just think it's a little bit neat that a Pakistani American who just moved to Stephenville in 2006 is the one who might be bringing Milton Brown back to life in Erath County and Stephenville. One other note, a lot of people know the musical band Asleep at the Wheel. It just so happens that Milton Brown died 2 weeks after a car wreck where he fell asleep in a car crash on Jacksboro Highway, and he died asleep because he was asleep at the wheel 2 weeks later from pneumonia. So even the name of the band, Asleep at the Wheel, owes its moniker to Milton Brown. So thank you so much, Mayor.
We have another recognition, proclamation about Constitutional Week. We have some ladies from the Daughters of the Revolution. Y'all want to come up here? I'll read this proclamation. Whereas September 17th, 2023 marks the 236th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which it will commemorate. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitutional Week. I therefore, Doug Savani, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Stephenville, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitutional Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. Thank you. Sure. That's gonna take one? Oh, here it is. She's usually standing there whenever we do this. You bet. Yeah, you can keep it. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, citizens' general discussion. I don't have any notices, so we'll go to the next item, which are regular agenda. Consider approval of the interlocal cooperative agreement for Erath County Joint Dispatch Center.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm very proud to bring this before you today. And Judge Huckabee's here tonight. This is a conversation that's been on again, off again for at least 25 years. And so for us to get to this point where the commissioner's court and the judge have already passed it, and for us to get here tonight, I think it's a pretty proud moment for all of Erath County and all law enforcement and fire services in the county. What this agreement lays out is that us and the county will go into a joint operations of a dispatch center. The Stephenville Police Department will be responsible for all the personnel that work in the center, and the county will provide all the facilities, namely looking at where the tax office is today. And the agreement spells out how the operations will work, how the reimbursements will work. And so once we approve this tonight and get the mayor's signature on it, I think, Judge, then the real work begins, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
Randy, you want to say something?
No, I just,
No, but.
I just think y'all, and I think to echo what Jason said, it's been a long time coming to get to this point, whether it's personality or facility or whatever, but now's the time, and this will provide a better service for all the citizens in Erath County and every community in it. I think it will be more efficient, effective, could save some money, will save some money. But the most important thing is it'll be a better service for our citizens when they call, and help will be there quicker. So thank you all for
Council, any questions?
voting yes.
Maybe. Any questions, council? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move with great joy that we approve the interlocal agreement for the Erath County Joint Dispatch Center as presented.
I'll say unanimous. Is that a unanimous vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, sir. Consider approval of the Lockhart Road at grade crossing agreement. That was hard to say. Did you come up with that name?
Came from the railroad, as
Okay.
you might
That
could
sounds
imagine.
about right.
So in June of this year, we awarded a contract for the improvements across Lockhart Road. And then in doing so, there was a record search done by the railroad that said, hey, Stephenville, you don't have a crossing agreement for this crossing at Lockhart, even though it's operated that way for as many years as we could possibly know. So what you have in here in front of you is really just a housekeeping item that allows that project to commence so that we can get a crossing on the books with Fort Worth and Western Railroad. There's no cost to the city to do that. Fort Worth and Western acknowledges that that crossing has existed for more years than we even know. And the term of this crossing lasts for as long as it operates as a crossing. So there's no term limit, there's no renewal, there's no cost to the city. And we have put this in front of the city attorney for approval.
Just want to mention that the crossing with the cross arms was initiated because of a lawsuit. An elderly man from the Dublin area who worked at Green Creek Nursery for 30 years probably was killed at that crossing after having crossed that way who knows how many thousands of times. And so this was it's nice to do that. So anybody have any questions? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the railroad crossing agreement with Fort Worth and Western Railroad.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Consider the thank you, sir, I appreciate that. Consider resolution approving a negotiated settlement between Atmos Cities Steering Committee, ACSC, and Atmos Energy Corp. Mid-Tex Division regarding the company's 2023 rate review mechanism filing.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I briefly mentioned this last month, that this may be coming our way. And so we are represented by the Atmos City Steering Committee. And so they worked with Atmos on their rate review mechanism that they had filed this year for $165.9 million on a system-wide basis. Atmos has agreed to settle that for $142 million. And so the committee that represents us and 181 other cities is recommending that we pass that resolution tonight. And so that's what I'm here to ask for.
Questions? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number 2023-R-13, the Atmos negotiated settlement as presented.
Hear a second?
Second.
All proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Consider approval of architect for city building located at 245 North Belknap Street and 299 North Belknap Street.
Mr. Mayor, Council, as y'all recall, we purchased what was known as the Castle Furniture Building on North Belknap Street and Green Street several months ago. And now we're looking at doing the renovations, and we're putting funds in next year's budget for the renovations and also for the design work that'll have to be done. And so I've met, Mr. Sanford's met, and some other members of our staff that'll end up being in that building have met with Wilson Architects out of Granbury, Mr. Walter Wilson. And after having discussions with him, I'd like to recommend to council that you authorize me to enter into an agreement with Mr. Wilson for design work for both the city and for CETA on that building.
Discussion. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve Jason to go into contract with the architect of his choosing that he just mentioned on 245 North Belknap and 299 North Belknap Street.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now we get to the fun part. Steve, you're up.
Excuse me. I don't have to stay for these anymore.
You used to be,
Fun's
have
just
P&Z.
beginning.
Wait a minute, you can go back here and educate us.
Mr. Mayor, Council, just two items tonight from Development Services. First one is a rezone request from Mr. Paxton Woolley, and he is present. It's for 980 Stephen. It is currently zoned R1. He's asking that it be rezoned to R2. This is in the city edition of the city of Stephenville. Again, it's 980 Stephen Street. On the screen there, you'll see the map that shows the current zoning is R1 and future land use is also single family. Water and sewer available. Water line is only a 3/4 inch water line. But Mr. Woolley is asking for a consideration on a zoning that would allow for the construction of a duplex. Planning and zoning met in a specially called meeting on August 30th, and by unanimous vote recommended the city council deny the rezone request. And with that, be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for Steve?
Yes, Steve, I have a couple of questions for you. First, I know you said the 3/4 inch. I saw that was one of their hang-ups on this. But if someone's, say, come build a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in that lot, the 3/4 inch pipe be sufficient?
It's a great question. Actually, Nick Williams and I spoke about that earlier today. I would assume that it could handle, the water system would be able to handle that single-family resident, and the duplex, if we did decide that we needed to
upsize that, then, we would address that during the development review. There could be some discussion on would the city pay for that, or would the developer pay for that upsize, since it's currently there at 3/4. If it's not adequate, then we would address that at the time of the review. Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, how many of the properties around are owner-occupied properties?
That area, we looked at a 300 to 400 foot radius, and it appears that that's about a 55% rental rate for that particular area.
And was there anyone that came to speak in opposition against this?
No, sir.
Anybody else?
Yeah, so Steve, one of the other questions that P and Z brought up was about I think Mr. Willie himself had mentioned that if there was overflow parking, it would go there on Stevens Street. Is there any way that can be worked in as you do your development meetings to make sure that we've got adequate?
I believe we could, and of course, that would be subject to Mr. Wooley's agreement, but looking at that lot, there's a lot of depth for that particular parcel, and so we may be able to set further back off of the street, which would allow for more off-street parking for that particular residence, should we get to that point.
Anybody else?
Well, it's not really a question, just a statement. I mean, Stevens Street is not it's not a very busy street. It's not a through street to get to, so I don't know how much parking right now is on the streets, so.
If I could speak to it?
In a minute. We'll let you go to speak. Sir, yes, ma'am.
So that is a very narrow street. However, this particular parcel, it appears that the city acquired additional right-of-way when we extended I believe, a water or sewer line. But it looks like this particular parcel has dedicated the additional right-of-way. There might be 2 or 3 feet additional required, but without a survey, I couldn't really say that for certain. But based on the GIS indicators, we already have right-of-way for this parcel. Doesn't mean the rest of the street would be constructed, but this particular parcel has dedicated right-of-way. One of the main concerns with P&Z was the spot zoning aspect, and if you look at the map, obviously there's a lot of yellow there. To the east of the area pictured on the screen, there is a multifamily property, and it's kind of out there on its own as well. So I wouldn't say that this duplex would overly, I wouldn't say it would have a huge negative effect on the neighborhood, but it's certainly not currently zoned, or the future land use designation doesn't allow for it either. So that was the reservation that the P&Z seemed to really focus on.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
So this may be premature, Steve, but in the comp plan update that's being done, is this an area for future land use consideration that might be in flux from what we're looking at right now?
I know the consultant's going to look at the entire city, and of course, the proximity of this lot in relation to Tarleton, then there may be some opportunity there that when we look at future land use, that it would be a higher level density than single family. Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody else?
Do we know how long this lot's been vacant?
Well, there's nothing on it. There's some
Never
really
been anything
large trees on the lot, so I would say that it's been there for probably longer than
Well, I guess if
I've
it's
been
still
alive.
got a 0 address designation, then I guess there's never been
Yes, sir.
a house there, correct?
No home there, as far as I'm aware, has ever been on the property.
Other questions? Hearing none, we'll enter in a public hearing and ask people who want to come speak in favor. You have 3 minutes. You'll state your name and address. And then you may have some questions in addition to that.
Paxton Woolley, thank you for allowing me to come speak to you. Currently living in Wiley, Texas. Wanted to speak to what Steve had said. There's currently, based on those survey, 10 feet of right-of-way for the additional parking. Today we scrambled with the architect as well and redrew the driveway to designate the additional parking spaces to handle the overflow in case we couldn't get to a resolution that you were happy with the designated space that's already allowed. So any questions or concerns about that, we would be glad to review in the drawing and consider taking some cost under the project to meet the needs of what you want.
Question, Mr. Woolley?
Paxton, you have other projects here in Stephenville, correct?
Yes, several. Right now, we have 5 projects that we're building, and we have 32 townhomes that we're looking to put on Paddock in addition to this for the Tarleton housing needs.
And are you going, is your plan to keep this property and manage it as a rental, or are you looking, I mean?
Each one of our properties have different exit strategies in it. Of course, we like to keep as many as we can and keep them as investments, but sometimes the strategy is to sell them as well and let them go to the market to other investors. So right now, currently, we have a plan, and based on the economy and the interest rates and a lot of things that are out of our control, we'll determine what the strategy is when the project's finished.
Hopefully.
So, good question. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just a comment, I think that Mr. Woolley appreciates you as a developer coming in here, willing to be open-minded and accepting of the comments from the planning and zoning commissioners, and being willing to change your plans if that's what's needed. Really appreciate
Thank you.
that
Thank you.
effort. Thank you.
Grew up in the community and just looking to get back to it, and I think there's a balance, just service our needs, the community's needs, and the market's needs at the same time. I think everyone can find that medium ground.
To add to what Mark said, I appreciate that you already were thinking of the parking before you got here tonight. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you.
Still in public hearing. Anybody else want to speak in favor or in opposition to the proposal or the request? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and consider approval of ordinance rezoning property located at 0, that is kind of odd, David, 0 Stephen parcel, R77402 being S5000 City Edition, Block 99, Lot 18 of the City of Stephenville, Erath County, Texas, from the single-family residential R1 to 1 and 2 family residential district R2.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve case number 2023-0-22, rezone City Edition, Block 99, Lot 18, 0 Stephen, from
Motion.
R1 to R2.
Second.
Oh, gotta get that one in there fast. Sometimes my left-right brain doesn't work right. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to say, I think, again, I really appreciate the developer's deal here. For me, this is a timing issue because, like some of the P and Z commissioners, I cannot see this as anything but spot zoning. And it gets worse if the future land use map is taken into account here. I think we just have to be really careful not to open that Pandora's box, because the spot zone here leads to the next guy coming back and saying, hey, why do you got something against me? You just approved this for this guy. What's different about my projects? I just think, for me at least, that's just a road I can't go down.
Anybody else?
I'd just comment that I think that's a very rational feeling towards this. I think the fact that the neighbors have now had 2 notifications and don't feel opposed to it. I think zoning laws and ordinances are in place to protect the existing property owners, and if they were given the opportunity twice now and felt the need that was infringing upon their rights, I think that would be taken into consideration. So.
Anyone else? Then we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Next item, case PP 2022-001.
Yes, sir, Mayor, Council. This is for the senior living project that will be over on Lincolnville Highway, Mr. Emmanuel Glockson. This was a PD when it was first presented, and the ordinance requires annual updates, so I'm a little bit behind on getting this to you for review, but Mr. Glockson has requested that the development schedule for this particular project be extended. He has provided a timeline that will carry us through August 2024 and he believes that he will be able to complete the project within that time frame. Some of the delay that we had with this project was related to getting approval for the TxDOT driveway application. He has acquired that. He also had to share access with one of the adjacent parcels there due to the proximity of the driveways along Lincolnville Highway. So we have that. The civil review is near completion. I think we'll have that probably wrapped up in the next week or two. And Mr. Glockson is also asking to escrow funds for the public improvements, which will not be that excessive as far as improvements that have to be made, so he can actually get started on vertical construction. So he drives in about 2.5, 3 hours to get here. So P&Z, when they reviewed this, they unanimously recommended that the city council approve the updated development schedule. Mr. Glockson did not make it in, but gave me authority to answer any of your questions that you may have related to this project.
Questions
Thank you.
for Steve? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Next item, consider approval of ordinance extending the modified development schedule for, oh, that's it. No. Consider approval of ordinance extending the modified development schedule for the planned development district located at 0 West Lincolnville Road, parcel R77868, 7.664 acres of the A0520 Menifee Jared of the city of Stephenville, Erath County, Texas. Do I hear a recommendation or motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 2023-023, extending the modified development schedule for the planned development as indicated.
Second.
Have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item, Maddie.
So back in the spring, the council voted to reinstate the Western Heritage Board for the downtown plaza here. And on August 15th, we met as a committee to nominate the advisory board. And I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Western Heritage Advisory Board that the committee approved on August 15th. And that would be Darla Doty, Jerry Norris, Carrie Hale, Marilyn Mader, and Vanessa Halper.
Questions for Maddie? Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I think she made a motion.
You made the motion. I'm sorry. Okay.
I'll second it.
All right.
Sorry.
No, it's that bright jacket you have. Have a motion and a second. I'm gonna put down everybody. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Well, that's a loud one. Tourism Visitors Bureau Committee, Ms. Durfee.
The committee met on August 15th to review applications for the non-voting ex officio members to the Western Heritage Advisory Board. And I made the recommendations that those 3 members be Angie Ayers, Bob Doty, and Mary Jane Flatbush. And that motion was carried unanimously. And then on that same time, the committee met to consider the approval of the Downtown Strategies Strategic Plan. And the following recommendations were made that the Downtown Strategies, a division of Retail Strategies, created a strategic plan for downtown. The Main Street Advisory Board voted to recommend approval to the strategic plan to move forward to council. And we, as a committee, voted on that, and again, it was carried unanimously to bring to full council. So, do I have to make 2 different motions?
Yes.
So, I'm sorry? Oh, okay. So I would like to make the motion that we accept the non-voting ex officio members to the Western Heritage Board.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item.
Thank you. And then I would like to make the motion that we approve the Downtown Strategy Strategic Plan.
Here a second.
Second.
Again, that's a good one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor. That's
Mr.
all I have.
Heskey.
Finance Committee met on August 22nd. Review and discussion of the annual comprehensive financial report for the period ending September 30th, 2022. Mr. Mike Brooks of Brooks, Watson and Company CPA firm performed the annual audit, presented the annual comprehensive report for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2022. And the audit received an unmodified clean opinion. Motion was made and seconded to move forward full council with a positive recommendation to accept the report. And that motion passed unanimously. Mr. Brooks is here. And so with that, I'll turn it over to him for
All right.
any presentation he'd like to make to full council.
Good evening. My name is Mike Brooks, auto partner with Brooks Watson and Company. And as Justin just mentioned, I will be presenting you with your annual comprehensive financial report for the year ended September 30th of 2022. And I have gone over this in a little more detail with the audit committee, so I'll try to keep my presentation a little bit short and just open it up to questions. I have prepared a summary presentation, which is going to be on the big screen, and if you don't have a copy, you can follow along on the screen, but it is going to touch on some of the more important numbers and statements within your report. So if you don't mind, I'll go over that now and then open it up to questions. All right, first, I just want to give a brief overview of the audit process. The audit can be broken into 3 general phases. First being the planning and risk assessment phase. So this occurs prior to year end. We're coming out, we're talking to the various departments, finance especially, trying to find out what's been going on during the year. Any new debt, construction projects, new grants, new departments. Ultimately, we're putting together our preliminary audit plan, which is going to determine the extent of the procedures that we perform in the various areas. The next stage, this is the bulk of what we do, so this is when we come out after year end. The books have been closed for the year. We are reviewing all material assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenditures across all funds and component units. And the final stage is the conclusion and reporting. So this is the wrap-up of any findings that we did have, the preparation and providing the journal entries to the city, and the preparation of the financial report and presentation and acceptance of that report. Next, I do want to point out that the city has prepared a comprehensive annual financial report. The comprehensive portion is an optional portion. Not all cities have the ability to compile and gather this information and prepare a comprehensive annual financial report. So it's commendable that the city has done that. There is a lot of very informative, good information within your report in the statistical section, a lot of 10-year analysis of debt, financial data, operating data, and other data. In addition, the city has traditionally submitted this report to the GFOA to be reviewed for the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. The city has received it for 33 years, and this will be the 34th year, correct? And we fully expect that the city will receive this award again. Next, I just want to briefly go over the components of your annual financial report. First, we have the letter of transmittal, followed by the auditor's opinion, followed by the management's discussion and analysis, then the basic financial statements, which include the government-wide fund level and notes to the financial statements, then the required supplementary information, and finally the statistical section. Next is what we consider to be the most important part of your financial report. This is our contribution, our independent auditor's report. This report can have 4 possible outcomes. The best being an unmodified audit opinion, and the worst being an adverse audit opinion. We have issued a clean, unmodified audit opinion on the city's financials. So this is the highest level of assurance that we can give that these financial statements are free of any material misstatement and all footnotes are disclosed. Next, I just want to touch on several financial highlights. As of the end of the year, total assets exceeded total liabilities by $108,888,000. The city's governmental funds reported a combined ending fund balance of $25.1 million. This was an increase of $2.5 million over the prior year. Your unassigned fund balance within your general fund totaled just over $14 million, which equated to 75% of your annual general fund expenditures. And overall, the city had an increase in net position this year on the full accrual level of approximately $10.4 million. Next is a summary of your governmental activities revenues. So this is a consolidated presentation of all of your governmental revenues, your governmental funds, which include your general fund, debt service, capital projects, and any special revenue funds. In total, revenues were $19.9 million. This was an overall increase of just under $670,000 from the prior year. 3 largest being property taxes, which totaled $6.7 million, slight decrease of $2,300. Your sales taxes totaled $8 million, which equated to an increase of just over $1 million this year. Charges for services totaled $2 million and had an increase of $123,000. Next is a summary of your governmental activities expenses. Your total expenses were $17.1 million. This is just your governmental funds. This was an increase of $400,000 from the prior year. Your public safety expenses totaled $8.9 million and had an increase of about $20,000. General government totaled $2.9 million, had an increase of $94,000. And your culture and rec expenses totaled $2.7 million and had an increase of $244,000. Next is a summary of the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for your governmental funds. This includes your general fund, capital improvements, and then your consolidated non-major funds. The numbers I want to point out here are your increase or decrease in fund balance for those funds, and then also the ending fund balance for your general fund. This year, the general fund did have a net increase in fund balance of about $3.1 million, so that was added to your ending fund balance. Your capital improvements fund had a decrease of $1.1 million due to capital expenditures occurring in a year after funding was received. So these capital improvement funds will typically have funding in 1 year, and then over the life of the project will have decreases in fund balance until the next funding round. And your non-major governmental funds on a consolidated basis had an overall increase of $547,000. Now, the next number I want to point out is your ending fund balance for your general fund. It's important that a city does maintain an adequate unassigned fund balance reserve for unplanned expenditures. And the GFOA recommends at least a 15% reserve in your unassigned fund balance when compared to your estimated overall annual expenditures within that fund.
And what would that number be?
15% of your expenditures. Well, we can.
At the end, you want to find it again. I just want to make sure we discuss that a second.
What it is and what it
What
should
have,
be.
what are we supposed to keep back
Yeah.
versus what we have back?
Okay. So as of the end of the year, your ending fund balance ending unassigned fund balance was approximately $14 million. This equated to about 75% of your annual general fund expenditures. So you had overall expenditures of $18 million. So if you were looking at a 20% comparison, it would probably be in the $2 million range, something like that.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yep. Okay. So anyway, the point I was making on your unassigned fund balance is 75%. It's certainly over the city's policy and also a very healthy unassigned fund balance. Okay. Next is a budget to actual for your general fund. On the left-hand side, you'll see the final budgeted numbers. So this was after any budget amendment that was made during the year. The center column is your actual results for the year, and the column on the right is your positive or negative budget variance. So the final budget had a overall positive revenue variance of $162,000. So overall, the city received $162,000 more than your final budget. Your expenditures had an overall positive variance of $2.8 million. So the city did spend $2.8 million less than your final budget. That, with your other financing sources, equated to an overall positive budget variance of just under $3.3 million. So when the city budgeted for a small deficit of $152,000 in fund balance, so there was actually a budgeted decrease in fund balance, but the city had an overall increase of $3.1 million, which was a healthy year from a budgetary perspective. Next is a statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position for your proprietary funds. That includes your water, wastewater, stormwater drainage, airport, and sanitary landfill. These funds do differ from your governmental funds in that they should be self-supporting. So they should have rates that are set at a level that do fund operations, debt service, and any capital improvements. So typically, if these funds are losing money over time, no year alone is an indicator, but if you see consistent losses, it's normally something to pay attention to take a look at. You might have a rate issue or some other operational issue that needs to be addressed, but the fund should be self-supporting, so they should maintain net position or add to it. Your water and wastewater fund increased net position this year by about $5.5 million. Your stormwater drainage had an increase of $208,000. Your airport had a small decrease of $67,000. And your sanitary landfill had an increase of $247,000. So overall, your proprietary funds did not have any indicators that we consider to be alarming or concerns over the rates, and we're in a healthy position. Okay, so that does conclude my presentation of the statements. There are 2 additional letters that are accompanying the report packet. One is our required auditor disclosure letter. This gives us an opportunity to discuss any issues we had with the completion of the audit, provide our journal entries, and talk about any new accounting standards that were implemented. The city did implement GASB 87 during this year, and we did have, I believe, 1 journal entry, possibly 2. One was very small, but the books were very clean, and we did not have to spend a lot of time correcting mistakes to bring these into accordance with GAAP. So that's typically a reflection of the city's ability to account for the books, and we do appreciate that, Monica.
Questions? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the annual comprehensive financial report for the city of Stephenville for the period ending September 30th, 2022.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, sir.
All
Appreciate
right,
you.
absolutely, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you.
Another item on the Finance Committee report, or Finance Committee meeting on August 22nd was budget adjustments for the fiscal year ending September 30th. Budget adjustments for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2023 were presented. General fund reserve will be reduced by $2,427,763 for the purchase of the Belknap Street properties in the amount of $794,670, and carryover of unspent capital improvement projects for fiscal year 21-22 of $1.633093 million. The other related adjustments in the general fund are a net zero for reallocation of budget or the addition of expenditures with a related addition of revenue. The wastewater fund reserve will be reduced $1,568,348 related to the carryover of unspent capital improvement projects for the fiscal year 21-22. The landfill fund reserve will be increased $28,380 related to equipment financing. The other related adjustments in the landfill fund are a net zero for the addition of expenditures with a related addition of revenue. Capital Projects Fund Reserve will decrease $576,661 due to the carryover of unspent capital improvement projects from fiscal year 21-22. Public Safety Fund Reserve will be decreased $40,280 for the purchase of 2 motorcycles and related training of 2 traffic officers. That was approved with unanimous vote to go forward to council for the approval of the budget adjustments. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to approve the budget adjustments as presented on August 22nd, 2023.
Now, I understand that has to be an ordinance.
Needs to be an ordinance, excuse me. So, with that,
Is orders,
it is ordinance 2023-0-24, ordinance budget adjustments, 4th quarter fiscal year 22-23.
second. Have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And then, Mr. Mayor, the Finance Committee also, every couple of years, I believe, Monica, is that right? Every year. The state of Texas asked that we review and adopt an investment policy. I think the only correction was related to a position title, but did we get that corrected in the presented form? So, all right, great. So, it was discussed and presented by staff and approved unanimously in committee. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to approve the investment policy as presented.
Which is resolution 2023-R-14.
There we go. So, 2023-R-
I got cheat, I got.
You got the
I got
cheat, you got the
notes.
cliff notes,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
right,
yeah.
there you go.
I have a motion and a
What
second.
was the number? Sorry.
2023-R-14.
-14, Resolution Investment Policy 2023.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, sir.
And with that, that concludes the Finance Committee report.
Ms. Harris.
Mayor, Council. We've looked over the financial statements ending July 31st, and we're still moving along. Things are pretty much as or a little bit better than we anticipated. We received $21,000 in property taxes in the month of July. That's a $436,000 increase over the funds collected last fiscal year to date. We're 97% of our budget. That's about $180,000 less than we anticipated. We received $767,000 in sales tax in July. We're at $984,000, or 14% more than the funds collected last fiscal year to date. The amount collected is 87% of our budget, and that's about $471,000 higher than anticipated. Of the $39.9 million that we received to date in revenue, 51% was for the general fund, 26% was for water and wastewater fund, and 6% was for the landfill fund. We received 92% of our total budgeted revenues through July. That's $3.3 million more than anticipated due to taxes, charges for services, and other revenues such as investment income, donations, and debt proceeds. We've received $22.5 million less than in revenue than in July through last fiscal year, and that's mainly due to debt proceeds that we received last year. But with you take that out, we've received $1.6 million more in taxes, $456 more in intergovernmental, and $256 more in charges for services over last fiscal year. We've spent $48.4 million to date. 42% is in the water wastewater fund, 39% is in the general fund, and 8% is in the capital project fund, 4% is the landfill fund. We've expended 52% of our total budgeted expenditures through July. That's almost $25.5 million less than anticipated. That's due to personnel, contractual, and the bulk is our capital outlays. We spent $13 million more in expenditures through July than last year to date, and the bulk of that is our capital outlay projects. CEDA has received an overall 92% of their budgeted revenue through July, which is $50,000 more than last fiscal year to date and $80,000 more than anticipated due to taxes and interest income. CEDA has spent an overall 41% of budgeted expenditures through July, which is $359,000 more than last year to date, and that's due to personnel and grant disbursements. But it's $766,000 less than anticipated, and that's due to capital outlay and grant disbursements. Are there any questions?
Questions for Monica? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Sanford, I just want to make a comment as you're getting up. We had an executive session last time. I think we decided he's going to be limited to 45 seconds or a minute.
Thank you. No, not after that good news of sales tax. Did you say 14% up, Monica, or something like that?
No, you don't get a pay raise.
I was trying to get Ashley one.
She got one.
All right, guys, thank y'all. Good to see you. Appreciate the time and all that you guys do. Always fun stuff. I can't really, I think I missed the last month in terms of being up here, which I can't do anymore because of the deaths on this day. This day, you know, I like to do this day in history. We lost Jimmy Buffett since then. We've lost Bob Barker since then. We lost the dude in Russia, you know, it blew up and everything. We lost Pee Wee Herman, one of the mayor's favorites, all in the last few weeks here. So, but on birthdays for this month, or for this day, Jesse James, he'd be 176 years old today, so that's exciting. Raquel Welch, kind of a bombshell queen. She passed away this year, too. Freddie Mercury, another queen, his birthday. Bob Newhart,
Carry on.
his birthday was today. Michael Keaton, the original movie Batman, not really the original Batman by any chance, but the one a lot of people identify with or there. On this day, we had the Constitution Week in 1774. On this day, Philly became the first capital of the United States. 62 years later, Sam Houston was elected president of the Republic of Texas, which we are we all like to celebrate. The first modern brazier was invented on this day in 1889. Thought some of you would enjoy that one. The first legal forward pass in football. It's football season. We love football. First legal forward pass was on this day in 1906, St. Louis University versus Carroll College. The St. Louis ended up winning 22-0, so that was good. The first Labor Day, and also some good. I joke around sometimes, but the first Labor Day telethon was on this day, actually, in 1966. The first one was, this is of course the Jerry Lewis telethon, $1 million was raised the first year. Over the course of his entire time doing that telethon, $2.45 billion for muscular dystrophy, pretty cool thing. So that was also, and then of course the Muppet Show premiered on this day, which I know was important to most of y'all. I just got back this last week from Austin. Retail Live was another recruiting trip. We get these periodically. I won't talk a lot about I had over 20 meetings with people. I won't talk a lot about who and what, but I will talk about something that we do frequently with our meetings. We did it, in fact, in Vegas over with the mayor when he and I went to Vegas last May, I believe, and we had another retail recruiting effort. We do a thing called geofencing. We take some marketing opportunities and we go around the entire event location, and we actually can do some data marketing into each and every person that attends those events. I don't have the results of what happened on this particular one that I just got back from Friday. However, the one in Vegas, we sent out 62,000 ads through social media to folks that were there. And these are the ads that if you think about when you're on your phone or whatever else and you see something pop up for various things that you might be interested in, there's where 62,000 times Stephenville came up. And we had a landing page from there to somewhere else where we could give even more information. Now, those don't get a lot of clicks. You probably don't click a lot of those things, but they do get some. And we were 6 times greater than the national average in terms of click-throughs on what they saw through Stephenville. Guys, one could make the difference in what we do here. So it's just something that we try to do. It's not a very costly effort on our part, but we get to reach a lot of people. Obviously, the one in May was a big conference, as the mayor saw. The one in Austin was not nearly as big, but it was surely as effective, and we'll send out just as many impressions, by the way, but to a much smaller group. What we find is when we go to these over and over, we see some of the same people. When they keep seeing Stephenville, it's working for us, even whenever we're not actually in the room. We also I passed to each of you guys one of these small little things that we can put together with different information. Our data analytics that we had on last year's budget, plus what we've asked for you guys to approve for our budget this year, allow us the opportunity to get some information out there that they ask of us whenever they go to their calls and emails and so forth. Their brokers also are ones that are trying to find out some information. We have to make Stephenville look different than just the 21,000 if it's been updated, previously 17,000 that was on Google or Wikipedia if you go onto those areas. So we try to get in front of them and give them some big numbers that are true and correct, but numbers that actually tell the story a little bit quicker, a little bit better. And it does help. As the mayor knows, we go up to many of these people now, unlike several years ago, and they know Stephenville's coming to them. And they have already either greenlit us for something or they know that we are further down the line in terms of retail and other kinds of recruitment. So that's an important piece. This data also will allow us the ability to give you information on tourism events. We have provided the city with some of those as well. We can give you for just about anything in any particular spot at any time and tell you not only where people came from, but where they went afterwards and how long they stayed in any location. We can tell you much more detailed information. It's pretty robust. So this information we can provide at any time as long as they have lengthened the amount of time we can get results because of security and privacy purposes, but we can go backwards and get information and draw that for you. So that's an important piece. We are now getting into, in addition to some of the different things in retail, we're kind of pivoting back a lot to our industry piece. We have several retail projects, our 15 projects we've got going on right now. 3 of them are new or relatively new industry efforts that will bring a lot of jobs and so forth. It's another way to increase the sales tax piece because you get more disposable income and people can spend those in our stores. So you work on getting the nice amenities into your community, but you also got to make sure that there's income associated with that so people can spend in those places. in addition to the expansion of your trade area. So we've got many of those things going. There is an update on clean control. That is, if you weren't at the CETA meeting recently, you saw that, or you did not see that we have showed a lot of the products that are going to be produced right here in Stephenville. This is the former Raylock building. We can't really call that anymore because they've owned it for about 3 years, and you'll start to see some additions and some changes to the build, not additions, excuse me, some changes to the building over there, some updates with windows and dock doors and paint and various other things. The entire parking lot will be redone, and then, of course, whatever they do on the inside to prepare for the 5 or 6 new lines that will come in. They anticipate being started by the end of the year, at the latest, the first of the year. They'll be hiring between now and then. They've already had a couple of signs up and are starting to hire. They have two new managers in place who have traveled to Indiana, where some of the equipment will be moving this way, as well as to Georgia, where other equipment will be coming in from their corporate headquarters in Warner Robins, Georgia. They will be hiring between 25 and 40 employees. I know that's a little bit of a gap there on those numbers. They'll start with about 20 to 25 and then move up to about 40 employees and go from there. So it's pretty exciting. Now, I told you we're going to industry, so the last thing I'll talk about is something that we're starting because we have obviously always had concern about what happens with those jobs. How do we get those jobs? How do we fill them without hurting everybody else? As you know, and I'm going to be a little critical of things because I've been a part of it as much as anybody else, the typical old days of trade shows and so forth where you have career fairs and such where you put the tablecloth on the table and people walk by is absolutely not working at the level that it used to work. And we all know this. I mean, when we were kids, maybe it did work. Nowadays, we would rather, do this as we're walking by if we're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old and we're not really watching. Maybe 1 or 2 people will get excited about it, but most people are not getting all that excited. So we started identifying through many talks and many surveys with some of our industries and other businesses the kind of person that they're looking for in terms of an employee, future employee. And in many cases, it's not your A student, and in many cases, it's not, most cases, it's not your F student. It's that in between, much like economics are. We have programs for the rich and programs for the poor, and we kind of miss out in the middle there, and that's where a lot of these kids are coming from. These are kids that may or may not belong to anything else at the school, and we're talking about high school in this case. They may or may not belong to anything in particular in terms of their desires. They do well. They don't do anything poorly. They just kind of float along. So, let me start over. So,
No, don't.
don't, okay. So we decided to get with the Workforce Solutions Group, Workforce Solutions out of North Texas, North Central Texas, excuse me, as well as the high school, and we started looking at a different type of thing. Last year I had a senior, and as many seniors, in fact, Ashley has a senior this year, most of them go about a half day. They just don't go to school that much. I don't know, I guess they're all too smart for school or they get it done or whatever the case is, and that's a good thing. It's not, but we find that most seniors or many seniors are done somewhere around the midday time period. So we thought that it would be interesting to get together and start a new club. There's National Honor Society for different people. There's other kinds of clubs and sports and other kinds of things. But we wanted to start something different for these kids to get to be wanted and to be nurtured into something that said that work is kind of cool. Because we've kind of been saying for years and years, and a lot of it's in my generation, our generation, that have wanted to do more for our kids. We've not forced them into the workforce. We've not forced them to do things. We've not forced them to fix a tire or change their oil or do other things. And so we wanted to start something called the Career Club at SISD or at the high school. This is actually launching on September 28th with great fanfare. The seniors, it is only for seniors at the high school because of their scheduling and so forth. The school district has come in and said, you know what, we're going to sponsor this as a club, as a group. We are also going to allow for these kids to get credit for certain things. We're going to allow the kids to be bused to some of these employers. And we've got the Workforce Solutions folks that are going to fund this so there will be no adverse effect on the school budget or anybody else's locally. We want the parents to be involved because the biggest influencers on these kids are parents and their teachers. Just the adults in their life, right? And so we're going to involve the parents from the very beginning, get them excited about saying how cool it is for the kid to actually work. We're going to get the teachers involved to get them more excited about what this looks like. In addition to Career Club, we're going to start a Career Academy. What we hear from a lot of our industry folks is that they do not know, these kids don't know how to do certain things. And I won't go into a lot of the skill sets specifically, but they don't know how to do some of the things that many of us took for granted when we were growing up. And so we're going to, instead of blaming the kid which we tend to do now, and many of our industries do now, many of the parents do now, we're going to turn that on its head, and we're going to actually help them and teach them those simple things that we take for granted. I give the example all the time. Why do I need to measure with a tape from here to that wall over there when my phone can do it now? Why do I need to figure out how to use a key on an ignition when, for most of my life, my kid's life anyway, it's a push button on a car? They've never even used a key. Even on your homes, many of our homes, you do it on your app or your phone or whatever to unlock or lock. We don't use keys hardly ever anymore. Even our fobs in our cars, even if you do have it, you have to push a button on your deal and find your key. It's just a different world now. And so we're going to teach them the world and to connect those two so these kids are more ready for the kind of industry jobs and other jobs as well, not just industry, but the kind of jobs that are out here. So it may only yield 1 or 2 people to start with, but it's going to ultimately yield several people, at least into the workforce. Then it's up to our businesses to go after those folks, but at least they'll be more ready for them, more prepared. So the Career Club will start on September the 28th at the high school with a kickoff event, and then it'll go from there. We're excited about what that looks like down the road. We'll see. We'll give you some updates down the road. Who knows? It may be a huge success. It may fall flat in its face, but at least it's something different than what's been done forever. In fact, I was going to use a quote, and I don't actually have the quote here, but the workforce folks out of the Metroplex said this is the most innovative program they've ever had, and that they're very excited to see it take place and see Stephenville be the model for that. So,
Question for Jeff.
anything?
You know, people mention his hat and some other things about him. That's both in Dallas, Fort Worth, and in Las Vegas twice. What happens is people actually recognize you because of that. There's not a lot of people that want to dress like you. But I'm going to, I understand.
I won't be like you.
But interestingly, though, it does branding, and he walks through a crowd, and people know, and they go up, and matter of fact, they often will say, "Now, isn't that guy from Steveville the one's wearing that hat?" So I appreciate the fact that you do that, and I just wanted to show you that CETA is branded here today, and they're monogrammed shirts with their new logo.
You look good on it.
And Mr. Brown is going through, there he is, going through a rebranding of Steveville logo as well, is that correct?
The whole city,
The-
September 18th through 20th.
We'll get feedback from the city. And so therefore, we're gonna have, so we'll be branding as well, and it's FYI, I wanna say thanks to what y'all did for a good brand.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next time, consent agenda, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve consent as presented.
Have a motion second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. City manager,
I don't have any comments today, Mayor. Thank you.
Leanne.
Well, you just stole one of my comments with the branding, but I have another. We have a busy month with the first TSU first home game is this weekend. And the following weekend is the SHS homecoming, the 15th, which will also bring over 140 former Stingerettes back to Stephenville to perform the halftime show.
Are you one of them?
I am one of them,
All
don't
right.
laugh. And also this month, we have the Cowboy Capital Rodeo in their new arena. So I hope everybody comes out for all 3 of them. So,
No comment.
no comment.
All right. I want to congratulate Sergeant Moore and Officer Lightfoot on finishing their basic police motor operations course. I guess they did that today, Jason? Or?
They finished at the end of last week.
Okay, so that means we're closer to getting them on the road?
One of them's out there today. I sold them today.
Oh, well, there you go.
Was he wearing his bloomers?
Well, so, they're custom orders, so
Okay.
they take a little time to
All right,
get.
that's part of my vote, but they had to wear those bloomers.
Understood.
Well, I'm ready to see them out there, so I appreciate those guys. Appreciate all y'all.
No comment.
No comment, Mr. Mayor.
I have 3 items. Everybody, I'm sure, has read about it, but TSU groundbreaking for their event center happened recently, and it will be a huge investment for the city of Stephenville, with them allowing organizations, et cetera, to use that big facility, which will seat around 7,500 participants in the bleachers and up to 10,000 when you include the floor. That will be one of the greatest buildings we have in Stephenville, Texas. I want to have a shout out to TxDOT. We had an accident on Lillian in West Washington and took out that light. Charleston, obviously, and the police department worked with them and obviously had a concern that on the weekend they were all moving back in. There's a 3-way stop sign there, and that was going to create a great safety hazard, and so we reached out to TxDOT, and they jumped in there and did a repair within about, 6 days or 7 days, something like that. And because they told us, well, we'll get it to it probably in November. And we had a long discussion with them, and they got that done right away. And the last thing is I want to shout out to Dr. Hurley and Lon Reisman for them working with the Stephenville school system to allow that football game to move back to Stephenville from Glen Rose. That was, I know that was a great stress for the university, and I would say thank you to both of those for stepping up and making that happen because the citizens wanted it at that football field. With that, in compliance with the provision of the Texas Open Meetings Law, Subchapter D, Government Code, Vernon's Texas Codes annotated in accordance with Section 551.071, consultation of attorney, Section 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, and which is the A0640 Roberts Matthews Survey, and Section 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, which is the A0016 Andrews Joseph AO13, all those things. All those are hard. call us back into session. Do we have a motion for what occurred in council, or executive session?
We do, Mr. Mayor. I move that we authorize the city manager to negotiate on behalf of the city real property issues involved on A0640 Roberts Matthews survey as discussed in executive session.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. At 7:31, we'll stand adjourned.